Welcome back into the Daily Dose, brought to you by Give'emHellBrigham.com and by CougarSportsInsider.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. I am your host, Jeff Hansen. Thank you so much for subscribing, for liking our content, and supporting our new platform during the first couple of weeks since we launched. If you have not yet done so, please subscribe to the channel and like this video. Share it with your friends, share it on Twitter, on Facebook. Share it with your mom. It's Mother's Day weekend, folks, and I can't think of a better Mother's Day present than to introduce your mom to the Daily Dose. Today, I want to talk about the BYU running back room. The Cougars landed a surprise commitment from Colorado transfer Deion Smith yesterday. I follow BYU recruiting as close as anybody, and I had no idea that BYU was hosting Smith. I had no idea that they were trending towards a commitment. I knew that BYU was kicking the tires on some running backs, but I did not know that Smith was that guy or that things would happen imminently. So it was a surprise to everybody when Smith announced that he would be coming to BYU. And immediately, as soon as that announcement hit the internet, we saw statements from BYU fans on Twitter, on Cougar Board, wherever BYU fans interact with each other, that this is now the deepest running back room in BYU history. And I want to delve into that statement a little bit more because I think the depth, there's some blurry lines between depth, between talent, and between returning experience or just experienced running backs, right? Or any position group. And if we look at this BYU running back room, I'm not sure that this is the deepest running back room yet. I think it could be. I think there's a strong case to say that, hey, maybe this is the most talented running back room, but talent doesn't always necessarily translate on the field. So let's take a look at what BYU's working with and figure out where BYU falls in those kind of three categories of depth and talent and experience. First and foremost, you got to talk about Aidan Robbins. UNLV transfer, ran for 1,000 yards last year for the Rebels. Aidan Robbins is RB1 on this BYU offense. There's no question about it. Deion Smith's addition to the roster does not jeopardize Aidan Robbins' place as the top dog at the running back position for BYU. Aidan Robbins has really 1 year of a ton of experience, and he was fantastic during that 1 year. Prior to his time at UNLV last year, Aidan Robbins had about 50 career rushing yards. But he had 1 year where he had over 200 carries, over 1,000 yards on the ground. You're not worried about his talent or his experience. He checks both boxes. Next on the list is Deion Smith. During his 4 years at Colorado, Smith accounted for 653 rushing yards. That's not a ton of production. He battled through the COVID season. He had an injury. Last year, he was battling back from an injury and still led the Buffs in rushing yards while playing on an absolutely terrible football team that was very frequently playing from behind, playing catch up, and having to rely on the passing game. He doesn't have a ton of returning production, but he does have a lot of experience in a P5 program and playing against P5 competition. Now, the interesting thing is that neither Robbins nor Smith have played it down for BYU football yet. So while they are returning a lot of experience, they're brand new to Provo. They're brand new to BYU. They have zero BYU experience. I don't think that necessarily matters in this transfer portal era, but it is an interesting asterisk as you look at the returning experience in the running back room. After that, there's not a lot of production there. Hinckley Ropati has shown flashes of being great for BYU. But when you look at his stats and the aggregate of his time at BYU, he's got 40 career carries for 204 yards. That's not exactly somebody that you feel 100% confident in going into any given game. Miles Davis is behind Hinckley Ropati, kind of like Ropati's got 56 career carries and 314 career yards. Not a lot of experience during his 3 or 4, I think 3 years now that he's been on BYU's roster. So the BYU experience that's coming back, there isn't a lot of it. There's talent. They've shown some flashes of being very effective and very impactful within the BYU offense, but they have yet to do it at any sort of a consistent basis. It's hard to really look. I mean, if you're looking at their highlights, you've got 2 or 3 games. Outside of those 2 or 3 games, there's not a lot of film on Ropati or Davis. And then behind those 3, you've got really talent, or excuse me, behind those 2, you've got 3 guys with a ton of talent and absolutely zero experience to speak of at BYU. Nukaluve Hilu from Tooele High School. He's fresh off of his mission. Ton of talent. I think he could be the running back of the future at BYU, but he's got 0 carries, 0 yards. This is his first year on the roster. LJ Martin flipped from Stanford on signing day. Another player, ton of talent, ton of potential, but it's hard to rely on potential. It's hard to rely on a true freshman. He has 0 carries, 0 yards, 0 touchdowns. Obviously, he is yet to join the roster. He's still wrapping up his high school career. And then behind that, you've got Enoch Nawahine, who joined from Utah State a couple of years ago. When he was at Utah State, he had 16 carries for 53 yards. BYU has a lot of guys, those 7 guys, right? They have a lot of players who I think can step up and play a big role in the offense. They don't have a lot of guys that I would say I'm 100% confident in if game day was tomorrow. They need to have guys emerge still. They need to have the rest behind Robbins. That depth chart, that pecking order still has to sort itself out. Compared to just last year, right? When you look at just Chris Brooks and just Lopini Katoa, just the 2 of them, prior to last season, they combined for 688 career carries, 3,200 career rushing yards, and 33 career rushing touchdowns. Add all 7 guys for BYU, they've got 487 career carries for 23, just shy of 2,300 rushing yards and 17 touchdowns. So Brooks and Lopini Katoa by themselves almost double the career touchdowns. They do double the career touchdowns and about 50% more in terms of carries and returning rushing yards. So when you ask yourself, or when you talk about depth versus talent versus returning production, BYU doesn't have a lot of production. They do have a lot of talent. And ultimately, I think that is the potential for a really deep running back room. But we still don't know what these guys are capable of doing within the BYU offense or for some of them at the Division I level at all. I am very confident that guys will emerge and guys will step up, but I do think that we can look at the running back room that we will see on week 1 against Sam Houston State might be a little bit surprising. The order that we think it's in right now, I don't think it will be in come game day, because aside from Robbins, you've got 6 guys who are all vying for the same spot, and we really don't know a ton about any of those 6 guys. We have little glimpses of what they've done throughout their careers, but we'll find out what they're capable of in August during fall camp. Thank you so much for subscribing and tuning in to the Daily Dose. Again, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Please share this video, and until next time, give them hell.